Hello again, everyone. So today we are fortunate and honored and privileged to have Mr. Shadi Khalloul with us, the founder of the Israeli Aramaic Christian Organization Association, and he is also an IDF Reserve Mayor and advocate for the Aramaic situation and people in Israel. Today he will speak about and expose the threat of Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood to both Christians and Jews. So please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Oppa. Now you, okay. Okay, so good morning again. And I am honored again to be with you. I'm happy to be here. And finally, I am talking about also another topic, very hot topic in Israel, in Europe, and in USA. Actually, in the entire world, it's a very hot topic. Islamic Brotherhood and Iran, both Islamic has Islamic agendas, and both actually a threat for Christian, Jews, and also atheists. Not only Christian and Jews. Every person that is non-Muslim is a target. And this agenda that they carry, it's a radical agenda, and I will talk about it here and give also example, because I don't want to give you only a lecture or a dry, as we call it, facts lecture. I want to give a living example to simplify things for you so you would understand and compare from your daily life and from our daily life as a native Aramaic people in this Middle East. So let's start first by examining together what is Islamic Brotherhood movement and what is Iran. And once we talk about it really very like maybe short time, because it's not the purpose here, as I said, to give lecture who are those people. We know. I want to focus on the living example afterward. But the Islamic Brotherhood movement is a movement that was founded by Hassan al-Banna in 1928, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire in the First World War. Hassan al-Banna was a scholar, Islamic scholar in Egypt, and founded this movement. And this movement since then actually spread all over. The movement in its nature and principles as a Sunni radical Islamic movement was working at the beginning as focusing on society issues, empowering the poor or working among poor people, helping them. And this way, when you work among those people are loyal to your doctrines. You are indoctrinating them. It's not easy to go to an educated person and indoctrinate him at the beginning and be convinced with your radical agenda. But they started with these poor people, ignorant people that are not educated, and later on expanded to very highly educated people. So they used this model, first of all, to indoctrinate people through schools and through social work. And later on, they expanded by actually empowering imams, indoctrinating imams, teaching imams, and those imams that meet with the people every week and every day in their mosques, they were the ones who transferring this indoctrination to the people in a daily life, until it become also later on, when they have a bigger audience, to a political movement, moving to a political movement and empowering also radical groups and creating also radical groups. The Islamic Brotherhood movement doesn't operate under its name. Its umbrella that create other organizations that share with them same doctrine, same goals, same strategy. So in Europe, they operate, for example, under the other like structures and organization. One of them, it's called the Federation of Islamic Federation of Europe. And there's another organization, it's called something human science, like the Islamic human science, which indoctrinate imams in Europe. And this is the way they operate in different organizations. In Israel, we have Hamas, for example, or Israel proper, we have Islamic Brotherhood movement, we call it the Northern section, and we have the Southern section. It was before as one section, as one group, and divided, South and North. Now, South is like they seems to operate as more moderate, and the Northern one is more aggressive and more violent one. In North Israel, it's called in Ikfar, and the leader of it, Sheikh Ra'ed Salah, for example, in Israel. And he always like talking about Al-Aqsa in Khatar, Al-Aqsa bi Khatar means Al-Aqsa, which is the mosque they built in Jerusalem and top of the Temple Mount, is under danger, and always trying to incite people based on religious Islamic teaching and spreading false, actually, news about the risk that Al-Aqsa might be demolished and built different, or the Temple Mount again. And this is what incite more Muslims, reaching them through emotions and making another intifada. To remind you, the intifada of 2000 started with this Al-Aqsa mosque that they were claiming back then that they will build the Temple Mount. We are now 2025, since 2000, nothing happened. So we have a status quo, we have nothing changed, but they use it, and that's the way the Islamic Brotherhood use the emotions of people through indoctrinating them and spreading lies and propaganda. Yotam spoke before about how the propaganda of Hamas works. Hamas isn't the Palestinian Authority or in Gaza today working in the same method. It's another structure of Islamic Brotherhood. It's part of the Islamic Brotherhood, and they have worked very actually hard since 1987 they were created, by the way. Hamas was created in 1987, and they actually worked so hard through the Arabs in Judea and Samaria that are called today Palestinians, or in Gaza, and they indoctrinate them through Islamic Sunni radical jihadi agenda, and the principle is to wipe out the state of Israel, and from there making it Islamic state with its capital, Jerusalem, and spreading it to Europe next. But I can see now that in Europe it's in parallel, it's not next, it's happening together in parallel through using the Palestinian cause as a reason to globalize the intifada. Globalize the intifada is globalize Islam. That's what it is. And they call it under globalized intifada. Okay? They use different methods in different places. That's the Brotherhood movement, first of all. So I think the Brotherhood movement in Europe, and I saw one legislation in European Union was talking about the both federations that I mentioned before, that they operating in Europe, as I said, and they want to declare actually them, or there is request to declare them both as terrorist organization in Europe. Okay? So they sponsor a lot of the activities of Islamic radicalism in Europe, and we see it in Britain, we see it in France, we see it in Belgium, we see it in Germany, and I'm not aware of the amount it happening in Norway, but I guess you know better than me of what's happening for you in Norway. But what will happen in Europe is, I will tell you example of what happened for us in the region. And then you might think what might happen in Europe if you don't act. Because if you don't connect the dots between what happened there and what will happen here, then we will lose the battle. I am here as a native Aramaic person, a Christian, indigenous person of this land. We were the majority of the Middle East one day, before. Until the 7th century, we were the majority. And we become today a tiny minority. Do you want to be a tiny minority in your own countries? I'm sure you don't want. I'm sure you love your children. I'm sure you love your people and your countries and your state, and you want to preserve it and keep it a good place to live for all the citizens of the state. So let's together examine things. And the second one I want to talk about, which is related, the Islamic Brotherhood movement is a Sunni radical Islamic group, and you have Iran. Iran, before 1979, the Islamic Revolution was a very Western country. Even though the Shia population of Iran were Muslims, but they were a moderate, really even secular Muslims. They were not even connected to their root, to the Islam. They were very westernized. They were having a very modern values. You can see women in Iran before 1979 partying in the streets, music, folklore, very beautiful Western culture prospering in Iran. It was totally different from what you see today. In 1979, for example, it has the Iranian Revolution or Islamic Revolution led by Ruhollah Khomeini. And this Khomeini, actually, who was supported actually by some of the Western countries, became the leader and was changing this country to be theocratic country regime, controlling by Islamic Shia now system that want also to impose Islamic values on Iranian population first, and then export it at the same time to Western societies and through the Middle East. That's part of the strategy. In one side, we have Islamic Brotherhood Sunnis and Islamic Iranian regime Shia. Both are rivals in somehow, but they know how to work when it needed with each others. Because the goal, the common thing for them is exporting Islam to the world and making Islamic Brotherhood. That's the common thing. Now, there are competition here, and that's why they are rivals. There is a competition between Sunni Shias and, Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims. Who will dominate? And this competition led to radicalizing societies in the Middle East and a race who will dominate more and will be more radical. And Israel is one reason, or a good reason, for example, to focus in as a non-Muslim society in the Middle East that they want to wipe out and use the people, unite people according to the fight against Israel in both sides. Now you can see, for example, Iran is heading this Islamic Shia radical movement, and on the other side, this movement that started in Egypt, today we have countries also sponsoring it, which is the countries, probably you know, called Qatar, called Turkey, and today. Before it was different. Today it's Qatar, it's Turkey, and other private donors that come from oil Gulf countries that finance this Islamic Brotherhood movement, and their aim is to impose Muslim lifestyle in Europe, in USA, and dominate the entire world according to Islamic Sharia laws, because this is what Prophet Muhammad ordered them. So, knowing this, or these facts, I want to give you example of the Christians of Lebanon, but as in Lebanon, you call it. Leave Christians aside now. Lebanon. This is a living example today of a failure country, and that was successful one time, and it was called the Switzerland of the Middle East until 1975. It was called Switzerland of the Middle East. Now, if you don't understand how Lebanon was created and what the purpose of Lebanon was back then, and how this model is, or failing Lebanon is now trying to be, or those Arab Islamic forces, radical forces, trying to impose or implement same strategy that failed Lebanon in Israel. And same strategy failing Israel and Lebanon, hoping to implement it in Europe. And they are doing it and working also in Europe, within your societies in Europe. So if you understand how Lebanon failed, you would understand maybe the threat and see a living example how you can protect yourself in Europe and in Norway, which we are now here among you in Norway. So let's examine 1920. I don't want to go back in history and tell you about the history and why, but just know that Lebanon was a stronghold for Eastern Christians since the 7th century because they fought for their existence to defend their last stronghold. And they suffered so much persecution, so much massacres, genocide, silent genocide, and different ways from Islamic forces that occupied Syria, Iraq, and they created the Umayyad dynasty that reached Andalusia in Spain, and they created the Islamic State all the way through North Africa and tried to occupy Europe by force. They didn't succeed back then. And they created also the Abbasid dynasty later on, and then they came the Mamluks, and then the Turks, Ottoman Turks, that all are different stages of the Islamic State that was created and colonizing other nations, imposing Arabism, imposing Islamization. And Lebanon was like an island into this ocean in the heart of what become, within time, 1,400 years, an Islamic sea or ocean, from Arabia all the way to North Africa and Turkey. And this little country, even before Israel was established, was stuck into their throat because they couldn't actually kill all Christians in 1860 and in 1914 genocide because of Western Christian intervention. And your intervention in the West saved the Christians as well in Lebanon. So we had a balance. And what happened in 1920 after the First World War, and that's what you need to understand, majority of Lebanese soil or lands, mountains, were still Christians. In the core of Lebanon, what is Mount Lebanon, was 90% Christians. And 10% were Druze. What happened in 1920 after Sykes-Picot Agreement is we have the French mandate, and the French approached the Maronites that had relations with Western powers from back in during the genocide of 1860 and even before, during the Crusade time, and afterward in 1914 to 1918, they said, what do you want after all this suffer and massacre and genocide and persecution that you faced in this region? The Maronites said, we want a homeland, finally, a state in our forefathers' land. And the French asked them, where do you want this homeland to be? What is the border of this homeland? And the Lebanese Christian Maronites specifically, because they are the ones, the majority of the Christian population of Lebanon, they said, we want what was before in the 7th century, our forefathers' land. It's extended until what you see today, modern Lebanon borders. It was a small Lebanon, which is only mountains of Lebanon with majority of 90%. Now the Maronites asking to attach 4 districts that were once theirs, to attach it to Mount Lebanon for strategic reasons, and to connect with Israel in the south. And with connecting 4 districts, that majority of them Muslims, we broke the balance of demographic balance. And from 90% of Lebanese Christian majority, they became 60 to 65% only majority. And the French asked them how you would control this. In 50 years, you will lose the majority. They said, you will be a power that's supporting us, and we will put in the system that always Lebanon will have a Maronite, Christian, Aramaic president in the constitution. The head of the army will be Maronite, and the country will be ruled according to a civil laws, which the Muslims don't like, of course. And slowly, we will educate the Muslims to be like us and love Lebanon. That's what they were thinking. We had a good intention to educate others, and we opened our schools for them, and we invested on them, and we did everything peacefully to educate them to love Lebanon. Because to remind you something, when Lebanon was created, the Muslims of Lebanon didn't want to have Lebanon. What they wanted is Islamic Arab state and unite with this Arab Islamic state. They never called themselves Lebanese. They wanted to be united with Syria, which is an Arab majority, Muslim majority. And there was Imam al-Husseini, who was a Nazi, actually, affiliated with the Nazis as well, who was pushing for creating a big Arabic Islamic state with its capital in Damascus. And the Maronite patriarch had, on a different plan, having a Lebanon separated from Syria, where are the majority are Christian population with different culture, with values, with different roots, origins, and even have a language of Aramaic before, like the Jews has the Hebrew. And this way we can preserve in this tiny land our people and not be under the rule as a dhimmis of under Islamic Syria. They got the plan, and they created Lebanon by the French support. The Muslims never accepted that. In 1943 Constitution, 1943 Constitution of Lebanon, the Maronite Aramaic Christians appeased the Sunni side in order to make them accept Lebanon. And they shared powers, the power of ruling the country between all other sects, Sunnis and Shia Islam. They gave, even they were, Maronites were still a majority. But they wanted them to be Lebanese and feel like they are one people in one land. So they gave them also a prime minister to be a Sunni, a head of parliament to be Shia Muslim. And they ruled the country hoping that they will accept according to civil society, not national identity, but civil society like in Europe today. And again, we opened all institutions. We hope they will become like us, accepting Lebanon. We taught them in our schools. We brought them the modernization. We brought them theater. We brought for them the music. We gave them everything for being a successful country and society. And we were as one like that until 1975. To remind you, very tiny thing, in 1958, the Muslims who wanted to make a change from within Lebanon, using this power that was given to them, they waged a civil war in 1958 against the Christians of Lebanon. And it was from 1958 to 1960, civil war, because they were considered Lebanese already. And who intervened to protect them, the regime, from not fall? USA brought the Marines into Lebanon, and Israel to save the country. And it was saved, but the tension kept boiling from below, slowly, until 1975 we had the big explosion of civil war, and you know it was led by Palestinian Liberation Force led by Arafat, the archi-terrorist that we call. They call him leader, but I call him terrorist, because he led the slaughter against Christians. And he said, we will liberate Jerusalem starting from Juni. It's a Maronite Christian town in North Lebanon. They said, but Juni in the north, Jerusalem in the south. How you want to start with Juni? What it has to do with you? He meant first the Christians, then the Jews. And he started there. He did a bad actions against the Christian populations with his terrorist organization, and the Muslims of Lebanon took this opportunity to join forces and divide the Lebanese army into two. The Lebanese, when they start responding back, they divided the army because the Muslims didn't accept taking a position against a Muslim Sunni Palestinians, and this is the way we have division in Lebanon, with Lebanese who become citizens and were Muslims siding with Palestinians, and with those Palestinians who were actually sent there by the Arab League, who is representing this Islamic cause. The Arab League sent this and actually legitimizing Palestinian and Muslim fight against Israel from Lebanon borders, and creating what we call Fatah land. That terrified the Christians of Lebanon. So after all this, they are doing that for us. We need to defend ourselves from massacres. They massacred the Christians in 1978. In 1976, Damour massacre. 78 of Aishiyi, El-Qa massacre. And the Christians created Phalange Force, and a civil war started, and that led Lebanon to a big failure that is happening until today. Since that time, the struggle of Islam started by Muslim Sunnis, and it ended up by Muslim Shia of Iran and Hezbollah. Hezbollah was created by Iran in 1982, using or taking advantage of this civil war in Lebanon to empower their and export their Muslim Shia indoctrination or doctrine to the Muslim Shia world, empowering Shia societies to spread that as a strategic, actually, plan to spread Shia Islam and reach or bring what we call the Persian Empire again alive under Shia Islam. So they used Hezbollah, the Shia Muslims of Lebanon. And this is all during the civil war. In 1990, there was Taif Agreement. Taif Agreement imposed in Lebanon, watch out, by force, by violence. They imposed the change of constitution, Arab world, supported by, or like using those Muslims from inside that like were fighting Israel and Christians in Lebanon. They came as moderators and offering, let's calm down the situation and offer a solution. The solution is another appeasement. What is the another appeasement? Taif Agreement. What is Taif Agreement? Taif Agreement means the Christians should give up their request of Lebanon being just Lebanese state, don't belong to anyone, it belongs to Lebanon people, it doesn't matter who you are, your background, you Christian, Muslim, Druze, Shia, Sunni, it doesn't matter. They were forcing the Christians who didn't define themselves Arabs to accept the definition of Lebanon in section number 2 as Arab state. Means if you are now Lebanon defined as Arab state, means you as the native indigenous people of Lebanon, and you are not Arab, then you are a foreigner in your own land. Okay? And the Christians has no choice, no other. The world left them alone. Americans were bought by the oil of Saudi Arabia and the Arab world, and they let that happen back then. Henry Kissinger came to Lebanon and offered the Christian Maronites and the Christians of Lebanon, we will build for you a new Lebanon in United States. We will give you land and call it Lebanon. That's the amount of appeasement and try to appease the Arab world and Islamic world back then. Based on this, we have the rise of Hezbollah, which is a Shia Islam now from Iranian side, and they controlled Lebanon by using Palestinian cause, which they have nothing to do with it, by the way. They are like the Sunni Islam and Shia Islam, they hate each other more than anything else. They fear each other more than anything else because they are like competing on the Muslim world. And if you see Saudi Arabia, for example, they fear from Iran. Why? Because this is Sunni Islam, this is Shia Islam. And they see Iran might take over Saudi Arabia and Medina and Mecca, which is like very holy places for the Muslims, Sunni world, they might become Shia if Iran does this step. So they always fear each other. But now Saudi Arabia go with Pakistan, that is nuclear power. They do alliance with Pakistan and reach agreement that any country that attacks Saudi Arabia, Pakistan as a nuclear power, as a Muslim Sunni power, will intervene for Saudi Arabia. So in this case, Iran, Hezbollah controlled Lebanon now, and the Christians start diminishing again and again until we see the full control of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, if you want to understand what is Hezbollah and how they act, because they act same way in Europe too. How they act when it was founded, again, like Muslim Brotherhood movement, I told you they use the poor people. The poor people, non-educated people, they want them to be non-educated too, and the majority should be not educated, and indoctrinate them through schools, through mosques, through scouts, For example, the scouts of Hezbollah today in Lebanon numbered 75,000 children. The arm, or like the terrorists or fighters of Hezbollah count today 40,000 in Lebanon. The Lebanese army, to compare it with Lebanese armed forces, the official ones, are 60,000. But if you count those 40,000 Hezbollah terrorists, very well armed, better than Lebanese army, and their salary is better than Lebanese soldiers. And Lebanese soldiers are actually bought by Hezbollah to be spies for them. And once civil war will be created, they will divide from the army and join Hezbollah. So they have a big control inside Lebanon. And that's why I don't see any country in Lebanon that can disarm Hezbollah. There's no way. It can't happen. It's non-realistic. It's only if Iran reach agreement with the United States, and Iran will give order to Hezbollah disarm, which will not happen. So that's how slowly indoctrinating people, then you have people loyal to you. You have people obey your orders. You have people uneducated, very fully radicalized by your agenda, and they are willing to die for you. That's exactly what's happening in Europe. That's the stage of indoctrination in Europe now by the Islamic Brotherhood movements and Iranians who infiltrate European societies by Shia Islamic groups. That's the first stage, peaceful one. Indoctrination, teachings, spreading things through sermons, victimization, making themselves victims and poor. We need help. We are poor people. That's how it starts. And we, the people of Europe, of Christianity, Judeo-Christian values who come from this background, and even atheists that were also from this background, even they are atheists, it's all fine. But we are very naive, most of us thinking we need to help and hoping they will accept our teaching in the future, and thinking they can become Norwegian, fully Norwegian, with our values. And until it is too late. Why too late? Because these people in that time, they are implanting their people in positions through democracy, taking advantage of democracy, implanting their people into institutions, into political system, and once they using their fertile, their fertility is better than us. We want good life. We want to invest in our kids. We want to invest in education, in culture, in science, and we want to focus on our careers. They invest in other strategy of making more kids, and these kids, we pay for them, and they become majority. And then once they take over by votes, by playing the democratic game, they will change the rules, and you will be begging them to live and survive and have your rights in your own countries. So this is what happened for the Maronites in Lebanon, for the Christians in Lebanon. And once they failed, because the Maronites were even disputing themselves what we should do. Shall we go and join the Arab world, or should we stay and be, fighting back? And this division weakened them, because what they should do with this threat. And I see this division inside European communities too. What shall we do? We shall let them be fully here, integrated, and stay as they are. Not integration, it doesn't mean assimilation. Watch out. Assimilation is making them Europeans or Norwegian, fully, which will not happen, unfortunately. It might happen in individual basis, not in a collective basis. But integration, it's integration, and they keep their own culture and trying to make or take advantage of the right moment to impose themselves and make your country look like Afghanistan or Middle East from the same culture that they come from. Okay? So in case of Lebanon, to show you example from just now, when they controlled, in 2020 we have a COVID, right? COVID pandemic. And people in Lebanon, it already was bankrupt country, and this make the country fall even more and bankrupt the country entirely. Banking system destroyed. People didn't have food. Pharmacies were emptied. And people were begging for help. Hezbollah is organized as a state within a state. Again, they have social network. So they're helping through their social network their people. And they are also advancing and making others support them, because they offer this also now to other people so they can give themselves legitimacy. So they want to help Sunnis and Christians in Lebanon. So they have a bank called Al-Qard al-Hassan. Hassan, it's according to Hassan Nasrallah, he's the head of the Hezbollah for the last 30 years, that was lately assassinated during the war by Israel. And so it's Qard al-Hassan means the loan. The loans of al-Hassan, that's the name of the bank. They were giving loans to people so people will be connected and depended on them. And we, as a Maronite Christians, we were approached by our bishop in Israel. Our bishop lives in Haifa. He's a Lebanese, but he has the only Christian figure, Maronite figure, who is allowed to cross the border between Lebanon and Israel through Nakura crossing. According to 1949 non-aggression agreement between Lebanon and Israel, when Lebanon was controlled by the Maronites, they made an agreement of non-aggression between the countries. Because this was our vision, to have peaceful borders between Israel and Lebanon. And he was a representative of the president of Lebanon. So he is the only figure that can cross back and forth with his car between Israel and Lebanon. And when he was in Israel, and he stays in Israel in Haifa now, he asked the communities, because of the economic situation, to help other Maronites in Lebanon that are having needs for money or food or medicine, because they lack the medicine for diabetes and cancer and other medicine. And they brought us lists, and we donated money, and I even went to Israeli companies. Some people went and asked from pharmacies to donate, and they donated through our church for the people in Lebanon with lists. Jews donated also money for this cause. And at the end, the patriarch went to Lebanon with $350,000 from 2 years' donations. And Druze in Israel, who also donated to their communities in Lebanon, were sending this money through the bishop, Maronite bishop. And we sent medicine or drugs for cancer and diabetes with icebox, and put it in his car and was driving to Lebanon. Once he crossed the Lebanese border, the Hezbollah crossing checkpoint or checkpoint in South Lebanon, stopped his car, confiscated the medicine, the drugs, and threw it. They took the money and they went to court, asking the court to punish him as a spy for Israel. It was a big scandal in Lebanon, huge in the news in Lebanon. And the patriarch of the church was so angry and upset against Hezbollah, and he declared that this is unacceptable and you need to return the money. This money is from our people to our people. But you know what Hezbollah want? He doesn't want to open another way of support for the people in needy bankruptcy country. He wants people to be dependent on the only loan bank of Hassan al-Qard al-Hassan, so they can control the country. That's the way they operated in Lebanon, and they still operating and terrorizing the citizens of Lebanon, and they saw this success, what happened in Lebanon, and they want to impose it in Israel, or to implement it in Israel. How they do it? They hope to use the Arab population of Israel and the West Bank, what we call Judea and Samaria, through indoctrinating them with Islamic radical agendas. And those people, we easily can use the term Al-Aqsa bi-Khatar, means Al-Aqsa is at risk. And once you say Al-Aqsa is at risk, means the mosque of Al-Aqsa is at risk. Everyone from the Muslim indoctrinating people who are indoctrinated fanatically now will join this battle for Al-Aqsa. And an internal war will start in Israel together with outside forces joining it. We have the same scenario of civil war in Lebanon, where the Jews are divided too, like we were divided, and for appeasing this side or that side or which way we should act. And it's exactly the same scenario in Europe. Might happen in the future when time is suitable for them. So saying this, I can just tell you that I pray for you and for us and for every people who want a free world, really free, just world, and where everyone can live and let others live. And not people who try to impose on us rules, values that has nothing to do with democracy. If you want your democracy prosper, save it. And you have ways to save it. We still are the majority in Europe. And we can do it if you understand the threat and unite against the threat. And we need to unite. We have a lot of things to give together. Me here as example, exposing what happened to us. This will empower you with knowledge that you can actually use it to protect your societies, your children, and your future in Norway and in Europe. And we love you so much, more than you think. We could be also your cause, because if you support us, there will be always in Israel and in the Middle East and in Lebanon, those guys busy with us there, while you here have time still to reorganize yourself. And this way, if you want to combat them, it's ideologies. It's a war of ideologies, my friends. That's the combat. It's not other war. They are coming here and you're allowing them, and you are not able to go to Saudi Arabia and to Qatar and to Iran and spread your democratic ideology there. If you are not allowed, then you are losing. You need to request equal treatment and equal respect. You come here using my democracy, spreading Islam. You allow me in your countries to If you build mosque here, I want to build the church, I want to build a synagogue, I want to build atheist, whatever, temple. You allow me whatever you want in an equal way as you do it in Europe. Then let's see who will win. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was a wake-up call for all of us. We have a few questions from the audience. So the first one is, IDF says 70% of Hezbollah's weapons comes from Russia. IDF soldiers in Gaza found mostly Russian weapons. How much do you think Russia supports those organizations?
Yes, well, Russia, there's no, I mean, it's not a secret that Russia was, during the Cold War, as well part, like supporting the Islamic Brotherhood movements or Arab side against Israel. And still, you know, in Syria, for example, the last decade, for example, Russia was controlling Syria, and they were supporting Syrian regime. And this weapon that existed in Syria spread all over, and they sell it today to different organizations after the fall of the Assad regime. And it spread to Hamas, with Islamic Brotherhood movements again, with that coming from Syria. By the way, there is a way of smuggling coming from Iran, because that's where also they receive the money from, the weapon from Russia, through Iran, and they bring it to Sudan, and from Sudan to, through the desert, smuggling it through Sinai to Hamas. And Egyptians allowed this to happen. And if you remember, many times you heard like Israeli strikes in Sudan. What the Israelis has to do in Sudan? Nothing. We have nothing in Sudan, but we were striking those weapon smuggling that we know about them. But there are so many times that we didn't know about, and this weapon was able to reach Hamas, and also through the sea. You know, Egyptians, you buy them with money easily today. You give them money, and they can smuggle for you through the sea, through Mediterranean, or through the Sinai desert.
So the next question here is regarding Turkey's role. What do you think their intentions are? Do you think they will ever attack again to establish some kind of caliphate?
They are doing it without attacking, actually. They are using the other proxies. Today, they used El Julani, and I'm not saying that, actually Trump said it. He said that to El Julani, to the Turkish president, Erdogan. He told him in front of all the media, you are the one who in charge of this change of in Syria. So all this, what happened in Syria, was because of Turkey. So they used the proxy of Al-Qaeda, which is another Islamic Brotherhood organization. Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra, and the ISIS, what we call, all these groups were concentrated in Idlib, trained by Turkey, and they were supported by Turkey. And when they made the invasion and Assad fall, they actually operated with Turkish intelligence. So they took over now Syria, and they're threatening Israel in the north, and now they want to also take over Gaza from the south and surround Israel from south and from north. And if you remember, during the last ceasefire now, Israel declared they will not allow Turkish forces to enter Gaza. That's the reason. We are aware what they want to do. We are aware that they want to build the Islamic Caliphate. And Jerusalem is the one of the main cities for them. They want to take it. They want to take it back and make it Islamic State. If you know, there is one guy, his name, Ra'id Salah again, the head of the Islamic Brotherhood movement in Israel, who is affiliated with Turkey, and he's in Israel, and he was jailed in Israel too, prisons. He said in Jerusalem, we will liberate Jerusalem and make it the not Palestinian state. He didn't talk about Palestine. He said we will make it the Islamic State, the capital of the Islamic State. not Palestinian. The Islamic Brotherhood movement use the Palestinian as a Islamic, Palestinian cause as a reason, but it's not really what they want. It's just using it because you in the West understand about national issues, not about religious. You are less connected to religious issues, so they use it as a national cause, but inside they wanted Islamic state, capital, and Islamic land. That's the real cause of Palestinian cause.
Right, so the last question here. I think most of us thought that was a very interesting speech you had. And where can we find more information about this and Lebanon's history? Do you have a book, for example, to recommend?
Oh yes, there's a book of Dr. Walid Fares. He's a scholar who come from Lebanon, actually. He fled from Lebanon in 1989 during the war when the Syrians and Arab League sent the Arab army, they call it, to Lebanon to join the Palestinians. He fled through Israel and he ended up in the United States, and now he is actually wrote a book called The Rise and Fall of Christian Lebanon. And he is mentioning everything on this book. So I recommend you to read his book, The Rise and Fall of Christian Lebanon, and you will understand what can happen also for you here. And he has also a book called Future Jihad, based on the same thing. So Future Jihad is by Dr. Walid Fares, is also a good book to read about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Give him a warm applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nå er det lunsj, og det lunsjen finner vi Konrad på rett på utsiden, er det ikke så? Jo. Så da er det bare å forsyne seg for de som har bestilt.